Alright, so for today I'm going Necrons, 2,000 points. I wanted to try a more of a shooty, ranged kind of Necrons, and yeah, that's pretty much it. So I have a battalion of a custom dynasty with relentless expansion, so a free 6-inch move at the beginning of the game, and immovable phalanx, so damage 1 or less, I get a +1 to my armor save if I haven't moved. That's going to be good for my opponent's turn. And so to start off with, my warlord is a catacomb command barge with a resurrection orb and my will be done, so -1 damage. A chronomancer with an entropic lance, veil of darkness, chronometron. So basically he's going to be a bit hard to kill, he's going to be able to teleport a unit around, and he's given some good shooting power. Then I have my technomancer, which is basically my medic. He's just going to go around healing things. He has the canoptic cloak, so he's going to fly. He has prismatic that prismatic item, so he can't be shot unless he is the closest thing. Then for my troops, I have 2 units of immortals with the basic Gauss Blaster, and then I have 2 units of Necron Warriors, with 1 unit with Gauss Reapers and the other one with the regular Gauss. It says Gauss Reaper there, but just ignore that. I accidentally forgot to swap it, so Gauss Reaper, which you can see by the model, and then the long-range Gauss weapons. Then for heavy support, I have 3 Locust Destroyers with a Locust Heavy Destroyer in there with the Gauss Destroyer. So these are 24-inch range, but the Heavy Destroyer has 36-inch range, very heavy weapon, 3d3 damage, goodness. Hopefully that'll be able to hit. So I have 3 of these units, and then for my fast attack, I have a unit of Canoptic Wraiths to hold the line or to punish. And then for actually doing the lifting and heavy work, the Scarabs. So that is 2,000 points of Necrons.
Alright, you guys, so I have 2 patrol detachments today with Salamanders. This is the same list I played last time. I really enjoyed it. I thought I would give it another go, see if I can play it a little better, maybe get the most out of it. So again, the HQ for the first patrol detachment is Adrax Agatone, one of the 2 named characters for the Salamanders. He's basically just a hit him and smash him kind of guy. So he's got a really strong hammer and a small flamer pistol thing. Right behind him are the 2 troops. So one is an assault intercessor squad of 5, just plain as can be. Just behind them is a set of tactical marines with a flamer. Again, just super boilerplate except the flamer. They're literally just for holding objectives and whatever, but flamers because, salamanders. And then behind them is a big old block of assault terminators with Thunderhammer and Storm Shield. There's nothing special in the squad, so there's no relics or anything like that. And then behind them in my fast attacks are these Invader ATVs, which again are all just buffed out with Meltas, because Salamanders. Moving into the second patrol detachment, my Warlord is Vulcan Heston, which is the other named character. Because he's a named character, his Warlord trait has to be Anvil of Strength, which gives him +2 strength. And then behind him is another boilerplate Space Marine tactical squad with a flamer sitting in there. And then behind them, in my elites, is a full squad of aggressors with the Flamestorm gauntlets. So that way, salamanders, flamers. And then in my elites, I guess still elites, I have the Venerable Dreadnought, which I kitted out with the heavy flamer and the combat weapon, and a multi-melta, because salamanders. And then fast attack, I have an attack bike with a heavy bolter. And you're like, well, that's not very salamander, but I had 50 points, so that fit real snug. And then behind them is a full squad of Eradicators. There are 2 multi-meltas in there, and everyone else has the heavy melta rifle. So just really mean, really, really grumpy people. And that is 2,000 points exactly.
Alright, so we don't have mission cards yet, but we have this handy mission dice. So, mission is 2-3, so it's the Scouring. So it is a Control 1, Control 2, Control More, and it is Take and Hold. At the end of each player's command phase, the player whose turn is scores 4 victory points for each of the following conditions they satisfy for a maximum of 12. Yeah, Control 1, Control 2, Control More. Strategic scan. At the end of the battle phase, each player scores 3 victory points for each objective marker on the battlefield that has been scanned by their army. Interesting. At the end of the battle, each player scores 3 points for each objective marker that has been scanned by their army. Oh, see left. Auspic scan. 1 unit from your army can start to perform this action at the end of your movement phase if it is within range of an objective marker that has not been scanned by a unit from your army. A unit cannot select this action while there are any enemy units in range of the same objective. The action is completed at the start of your next command phase or at the end of the battle, whichever happens first. And the unit providing it is still in range of the objective. Okay, so basically it's just a simple action. If this action is successfully completed, it has said to have been scanned by your army. There is only 5 objectives, and they're all in the middle of the board. So that's going to be pretty interesting.
So each one, so to get those extra 3 points each turn, you basically have to scan an objective.
Yes, but it doesn't say that there is a limit to how many we can do.
And that's
at one
not
time.
and that's not a secondary. That's part of the primary.
That's the primary. That's part of the primary.
Oh my gosh. Okay. All right. That's not ideal.
Okay, so whoever gets the first turn is going to rush up and just
Scan everything.
Yeah, as soon as they can. All right, then. All right, so for this mission, since we have to all be in the center, I decided that for me, I wanted to just create line of sight lanes, make it easy for me to see through and shoot. Even though I have a lot of short range weapons, I just wanted fire lanes essentially. So I basically wanted to break up his ability to shoot. Also, because he has eradicators, I wanted to use the L-shaped buildings that did not have the ability to see through. So these blue ones do not have the ability to see through, so you have to get out of terrain in order to go through them. But he placed 1 rune. So that was my idea going forward.
Yeah, so I knew you were a shooting army, so again, I was just trying to pepper things that would make shooting kind of difficult, and give room for melee units to finagle their way through. Of course, I don't know how well that worked, actually, because there's a lot of just really long sidelines.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Alright, for secondaries, as for me at Necrons, I'm going to do Ancient Machineries. Since I have to do a action for the main objective, I can only do 1 per turn, so I think, since there's 2 right next to the start, I believe that I can do Ancient Machineries constantly, like back and forth. So it's sort of going to be roped into the game, so I'm going to be doing Ancient Machineries as best I can. Then I'm going to be doing Grind Them Down, which... he has a bunch of smaller chafe units, and I think I'll be able to wipe them out. I mean, I don't have as many units for what we're doing. And then I have behind enemy lines, because I think I'm going to be flying around the place. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, so I chose Stranglehold. I have a lot more kind of melee units, so I think I might be able to sit on more objectives, unless he blows me off, which... I mean, that's not the goal, but anyway, so I think I could probably get Stranglehold reliably, or semi-reliably. No prisoners I took because most of his army is actually infantry, so that's kind of cool. And then I really didn't know what to do for a third, so I just did Nachman data, which is easy enough to do, I suppose. I just have to have a bigger squad do it, as we learned from the last game, because you have to roll a dice to confirm it now.
Yeah.
So it's not a given unless you have a really big squad do it.
Alright, so for deployment, my idea is going forward because he has only 24-inch range, maximum, with all his meltas. I felt pretty confident being up in front, and because I have Relentless Expansion, I get a free move per game, so I'm pretty good with that. So essentially, I just stacked all my guys forward. My destroyers have fly, so the terrain barriers aren't really that big of a barrier for him. And so basically I just put all my stuff forward in preparation for some quick movement at the beginning.
Yeah, so like he said, I only have 24-inch shooting at best, with the exception of my tac bike. So I put my shorter range aggressors with their flamers in probably the place where they'll be able to move the easiest without being shot at, so that way they can hopefully survive to get there. But then everything else that has more movement, I place in the more open area so they can just kind of make a run for it. And I just kind of layered meltas, so like my ATVs are on one side, my Eradicators are on the other. Flamers with the Aggressors on one side, and then Terminators are actually sitting in the middle. So anyway, so I tried to kind of layer stuff with ranges and the open spaces with the closed spaces. So we'll see how that works out for me.
All right, so for going first, if I'm going to get my pre-move, but basically if I go first, I'm going to basically try to do my best to wipe out his anti-tank weapons. See, his Terminators are very tough, but I don't really see them as like something I could noticeably shift in a single turn. And so I've been more focused on his more Meltas and more heavy firepower stuff. Yeah. So if I went...
Don't forget, though, I have Stealth Sacrifice, so I can save a unit by sacrificing another unit.
Does that apply to vehicles if I shoot at your vehicles?
No, it's infantry.
Alrighty then. But even still without that, so basically because of my pre-move, if he's going to go first, then my guys are just going to shift out of the way to get further away from his Meltas, so that his Meltas will probably be useless unless he really goes far, and then on my next turn I'll probably just wipe them out. But if I'm going first, I'm going to set up into a good position for fire lanes, and then I'm just going to go ham with his vehicles and stuff. So that's if I go first or second. What about you?
Yeah, I don't know, because my stuff is pretty short range. No Man's Land is 24 inches, and you're kind of up close. So theoretically, my Meltas could get in range turn 1, but it's not a lot of great targets for them. I don't know. I mean, it would literally just be run up and try and do as much damage as I can, or secure choke points and try and anchor them down so you can't get to more than these two objectives, I think.
Alright then. Let's see.
Here we go.
Oh.
Kick out. Oh my gosh.
That freeze thing happened again.
Yeah. You want to just reroll?
Sure.
Alright, ready? Here we go. Alright, here we go. That's a roll.
Oh my god. I never get to go first.
What?
Alright. For the last 3 games now?
Okay.
Alright then. So, Space Marine's first turn.
Alright guys, so essentially everything moved forward. Vulcan gave his command, his Forge Father, to the Eradicators. The Space Marines are doing the mission, I don't even know what it's called, mission extra points.
Strategic scan.
Yeah, that thing. So those guys are doing it. I didn't realize there was a full battle round, so it'll be interesting to see if they're still alive to finish it. But other than that, literally everything just moved up. A few things ran. So the Aggressors ran, the Terminators and Adrax ran, and the Assault Intercessors ran, but everything else just kind of walked on forward. Alright, you guys, so my Eradicator Sergeant was the only one out of the squad that could see and had range, so he shot at these Immortals. He killed 1. The Venerable Dreadnought also shot at the Immortals for the exact same reason. The only thing he could see and had range to. Killed 1. The Attack Bike had range for all of his stuff, but he failed everything. So it was relatively uneventful. But yeah, that was my shooting phase. Alright, you guys, so essentially, I got my Stranglehold points. We'll see next turn from end of battle round if I got the scouring stuff. No prisoners. I killed 2 Immortals, but obviously that doesn't count for anything right now. And I did get the 1 Nachman data. And I'll just mark that here so I don't forget. And I'll put a flag in the corner of the map to mark it so that way I know which one's which. But yeah, so, you know, it was okay as far as secondaries go.
Alright, so for my movement phase, it's time for justice. So I used Veil of the Darkness from my Chronomancer to teleport him and one unit behind enemy lines, which was very easy to do since everyone's going to the middle, because the stupid mission requires everyone to go to the middle. And so I went behind the Intruder ATVs, hoping to be able to basically wipe them out. My Canoptic Wraiths moved in to try to, since I have grind them down, I really do want to try to knock out units, and since he did not kill a single unit, it's an easy 3 points if I just knock out one unit. So the Locust Heavy Destroyers on the bottom moved up to basically hit the ATVs or the aggressors. The Canoptic Wraiths are moving up to wipe out that Space Marine squad or those aggressors. I mean, if they swing first, I'll be fine. The Immortals that are still surviving down there are just gonna shoot that bike. My Canoptic Swarm at the bottom is going to be doing their action, the turn game action. The Canoptic Swarm on the north is going to be doing my Ancient Machineries action. So both of them are doing work right now. My Necron Warriors up top are moving up to, the idea is to wipe out his guys that are doing his mission thing. But we'll see how that goes. So the Destroyers up top moved up to hit that Dreadnought. The Immortals moved up to try to clear the way. The Warriors are going to hit those Intercessors. And yeah, and so everyone's just moving in to hit all their targets since everything's out in the open. Alright, so big shooting phase. So with my unit that teleported behind, my Gauss Reapers, I use Disintegrator Capacitors and Relentless Onslaught to give me 6s automatically wound and 6s generate auto extra hits. And because of that, I fired all my shots at the Invader ATVs, and I did exactly 24 wounds to them. And then my opponent used a command reroll to reroll 1, so he could save 1. So one Invader ATV survived with 1 wound. Then I had my Chronomancer fire into it, and I spent 1 CP to make him reroll. Then I thought I could spend 1 CP to make it auto wound. It didn't works. I decided, nah, I'll save it. And so I rolled to wound, and I rolled a 2 with his Strength 9 or Strength 8 weapon, and so that Invader ATV survived. So then I decided to move up. My Immortals at the bottom shot at the attack bike, did 2 wounds to it. It still survived. And then I went up top. My giant unit of Necron Warriors with their weapons, we did a total of 26 shots at the Intercessors and killed like 1 guy and did a wound. I was absolutely terrible. Stark contrast to the huge shooting at the bottom. Then my Immortals up top shot at them and killed a few. And then my Locust Heavy Destroyers up there, the one with the Gauss Destructor fired at the Venerable Dreadnought, did a total of 5 wounds to it. It would have been 6, but actually would have been 7, but he saved 1 with his Feel No Pain, and then the minus damage reduction of 1. Then the Locust Destroyers fired at the Assault Intercessor Sergeants, did 5 wounds to them, but he managed to roll 3 6s, and he has 1 guy left. So there's no way I'm going to be able to shoot these other Space Marines. Then I had my Locust Destroyers in the middle fire at the Eradicators, and they had the worst shooting ever. He used Transhuman to try to save him, and I only was able to successfully kill 1 guy in total. 1 guy.
Nice.
Everything missed. That was absolutely terrible. Well, and then after that, my Locust Destroyers at the bottom fired they fired at the aggressors, successfully killed 2, and then they fired at the Space Marines there and successfully killed 3 of them. And so overall, it was pretty devastating, but I haven't killed a single unit. Oh my goodness! I just realized that. Oh no!
Everything has survived by 1.
We'll see. Alright, so for charges, since that ATV survived, I charged in my Chronomancer. I needed a 9, and I got it. So he got in, but just to make sure he's not alone in the future, I had the Warriors also charge, and they made it in on a 9 exactly. So we moved up there. And then the Canoptic Wraiths charged the Space Marines squad and the aggressors. Then the aggressors turned around and fired 28 flamer shots into me, and I rolled really, really well since they didn't have any AP minus anything, so I only lost 1 Canoptic Wraith in the charge. Alright, so in combat, I had my Canoptic Wraiths go first because I didn't want him to interrupt, and they were successfully able to kill. Well, I had 1 guy swing on the Space Marine Sergeants, and I had 3 swing on the aggressors. That 1 guy was able to kill 1 Space Marine Sergeant, and he saved the other save, so that squad still survived, sadly. Then the 3 swung and successfully killed 2 aggressors entirely. And then my Chronomancer swung against the Invader ATV and whiffed. Then I had 15 warriors able to swing against the Invader ATV. I spent 1 CP to increase their strength so they wound on 4s. There was 1 4, so I paid 1 CP for 1 extra wound. And then he was a total of 6 saves. He rolled all of them and he failed 1. The Invader ATV would have died, then he spent a command reroll to reroll it, and he made a 3, so the Invader ATV survived combat.
He survived.
Yeah, and then his swings back, his Space Marine Sergeant swung back, did nothing. His aggressors swung back, and they whiffed hard, and I have 4-up invulns with this Canoptic Wraiths, so I only took 1 wound. And
Which
that
was 2 damage.
Yeah, and that was combat. Alright then, so for morale phase, the Space Marines up top, he had to roll a 4 or less. He rolled a 5. The squad up top is gone, and I'm going to get my grind them down points. And then on the bottom, his Space Marine Sergeant at the bottom fighting the Canoptic Wraiths had to do the exact same thing. He rolled a 6, so he was gone. The aggressors, they needed to roll a 4 or less, or they would lose 1, and they made it. So that was the end of morale phase, but that wipes out 2 squads. Alright, so that actually was a very beneficial turn for me. So I won't know about how I get the Scouring or Ancient Machineries until the beginning of my next turn, but for Grind Them Down, I successfully killed more enemy units than he did to me, and I have 2 units behind enemy lines because of my teleportation. My, Chronomancer and the unit of warriors went all the way in the back, are in his deployment zone, so I get a total of 4 points. That, I completely forgot about that actually, that I had that secondary, so this is going very well for me.
Alright, you guys, so basically everything kind of moved, so my Adrax and my Terminators kind of moved up to deal both with the Canoptics and the Necron Warriors. My Eradicators moved forward to kind of deal with these Locusts over here, as did Vulcan. Nothing's in range of anything, but still, he's emotional support. My Dreadnought moved up a bit, and so did my little Tacticals here to kind of just try and, do stuff. But, just to kind of shoot a little bit while still holding on to this objective. But yeah, I would say that is a movement. Alright guys, so mostly uneventful shooting. The Canoptic Wraiths took 2 wounds from my immolation protocol, so my aggressors turned their flamers into pistols. The Necron Warriors up top in the red, they took a single wound. 1 Necron Warrior died. He failed his resurrection protocols. The purple Immortals up top also took 1 guy that failed his protocols. My Dreadnought was able to kill one of the what are these Locust Destroyers up at the top and do a wound. And then
the Invader ATV shot at my Chronomancer and with his Melta. However, he had a 4-up invulnerable save. He failed both. I used the reroll to redo that one of my saves, and he made it on a 4-up. And so because of his unique item, that Photonic Transubjugator, the first wound he takes turns to 0 damage. So he survived entirely. The Invader ATV shot him with the rest of the stuff, but nothing did anything.
And then the Eradicators used total obliteration and shot at his squad of 4 Locust Destroyers, and with just the multi-meltas alone, not even the regular heavy rifles, were able to wipe the squad with melta damage. So
Disappointing.
And that was it's their job to wipe things off. I would be disappointed if they didn't. But that was my shooting phase. Alright, so the Dreadnought tried to charge into the Necron Warriors. He missed it by 0.1 inches, so I was like, okay, mine as well. So command pointed it, he failed again, which was pathetic. Adrax up or down by the bottom, charged the Canoptic Wraiths. He needed a 2, so he automatically was getting in, so I just scooted him in. And then the Assault Terminators, they charged the Necron Warriors. They rolled 5, and they were able to get in real nice and cozy. So yeah. Alright, you guys, so basically for combat, Adrax swung, and he whiffed pretty bad. I think he killed 1, though.
Yeah, successfully did 1.
Yeah, and then the Aggressor Sergeant also swung. He did 2 damage, so only 1 wound got through. So both of them kind of whiffed pretty bad. And then the Terminators swung, and they killed 20. They did like 28 wounds, and then he saved a couple of them, but then he forgot he had an invuln save.
Yeah, so
And then he had reanimation protocol. So essentially, I killed 8 by the end of it.
So essentially, the full thing is they had a 5 up invulnerable save from the Chronomancer that lasts until my next command phase, and essentially, when I first removed them, he successfully killed 18 of them at first, but then I remembered I had the 5 up, so I re-rolled that and found out that that was wrong. And then the reanimations, I just re-added them back, and the Chronomancer swung against his Invader ATV, successfully hit it, successfully wounded it, and he did not roll his 6-up save from it. And so that happened. And then my Canotip Wraiths, all of them swung on the aggressors and successfully only killed 1 and did 1 wound. Or 2 wounds.
I was able to save 1.
So that was very sad. Yeah.
So all in all, a lot happened, but then at the same time, a whole lot didn't actually happen. Alright, you guys, so I was able to get the primaries. Obviously, from the last battle round, I was able to get my 3 points for the Scouring. I do actually have Stranglehold for this one again. No prisoners, that'll come back later. I wasn't able to do Nachman data. I completely forgot about it. My tacticals on the one side could have easily done it, but I forgot about it, and then they shot, and then by the time I remembered, it was like, yeah, it's way too late. So not a great turn for secondaries, but, you know, it's whatever.
Alright, so for movement, I retreated my Necron Warriors on the bottom and my Chronomancer to go around and to get away out of combat. Now, my command protocols for this turn is add 3 inch to the maximum range of auras, and as well as all my units are eligible to shoot in the turn they fell back, but -1 to hit. And so they basically fell back, they're going to shoot. Up top, I reposition my Mortals, Locust Heavy Destroyers to be able to intercept and shoot maybe the Eradicators and the vehicles and stuff like that. My Necron Warriors with reanimation protocols, or the Technomancer was able to bring back the one guy who died, so they moved out south towards that attack bike. Then my Canoptic Wraiths broke out of combat and moved up to engage the Eradicators, since they can fall back, since they can shoot and charge in a turn in which they fell back. Their one saving grace from their terrible weapon skill. My Locusts on the bottom fell back. I could mag dump those Eradicators, but it's like overall, honestly, the Terminators are so tough, I would think to ignore them, but I'm making the call to probably try to hit them, probably weaken them a bit. And of course I had I decided to have my Catacomb Command Barge move up. The block in the middle is protecting him from line of sight from the Eradicators in case the worst happens, but we'll see what happens. Alright, so I went big with the shooting. So for starters, actually, what did I start with? I don't remember. Alright, so my Necron Warriors split fired. They fired at the Dreadnought and they fired at the Eradicators. They did 1 wound to the Eradicators and they did 1 wound to the Dreadnought. I barely had any of them to shoot. These Necron Warriors have barely done anything. Then I had the Heavy Destroyers fire at the Dreadnought and they successfully killed it. However, the 2 regular Locust Destroyers didn't do anything against it, and the Locust Heavy Destroyer just obliterated it. I should have fired that first, wiped it out, and then had the other 2 fire at something else. And then the Catacomb Command Barge fired at the Space Marines, killed 1, and then the Immortals also fired at them, killed 1. The Immortals at the bottom fired at the Eradicators, did literally nothing. The Locust Heavy Destroyers at the bottom all fired at the Terminators, killed 2 of them. Then I had what was left of the Necron Warriors, which was like 16 of them. I used Disintegrating Capacitors for 6s to hit automatically wound, and Relentless Onslaught, which gives exploding 6s. So they all fired, and they were successfully able to killed 1 and do 1 wound to these Terminators. And then my Chronomancer also fired at the Assault Terminators and did literally nothing. And as far as that goes, and my Swarms up top, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, are doing the scanning thing for my army. Alright, so for the charge phase, I had my Necron warriors charge the center to get that objective since they have OBSEC. That's why I didn't shoot off the attack bike, I needed it there. And then I had the Canoptic Wraiths charge his Eradicators. They only needed a 1, and I positioned them just out of Volcaniston's Heroic Intervention phase. And then after that, he did Overwatch, and he successfully hit me once, but I saved it on a 4-up, but he had some sort of special ability, which on a 4-up to wound automatically gave me a mortal wound, so I have 1 Canoptic Wraith at 1 wound. So, we'll see how the fight goes. Alright, so for combat, my Wraiths, I needed them to go first, so they swung against the Eradicators, but their weapon skill 4 really does come to bite them. I mean, they have a lot of good abilities, their fallback, shoot and charge, and all that stuff, but that weapon skill 4, ballistic skill 4, it kind of does bite them a lot. So they were successfully able to kill 2 Eradicators. And then my Necron Warriors, I had 14 of them swing on the attack bike. They had to do 1 wound. They did nothing. My opponent saved all of them. Yeah, they had 14
like 5 saves too.
Yeah, 14 attacks, 5 saves. He made it. And so then his Eradicator swung back, did 2 wounds to me. I saved both of them on a 4-up. Then his attack bike swung on me, and I saved them all. So nothing happened except for 2 deaths on the Eradicators. Alright, so for primaries, I got Control 1, Control 2. I did successfully get my 3 points for the previous turn of the Scouring now, and I already have the next scan happening up. I did get my Ancient Machineries. This turn, I am not going for my Ancient Machineries because I have to go for the Scouring, so I'm doing the Scouring right now. And then in the next turn, the Ancient Machineries, I'll try that again. Grind them down. He wiped out my Locust Heavy Destroyer squad, but I was able to successfully kill his Invader ATVs this turn and the Dreadnought, so that's 2 to 1. And then my Chronomancer and that unit of troops is behind enemy lines, so I'm getting another 4 points. So on primaries, it's meh, but I'm doing pretty good. I'm holding in there.
Alright, so essentially, I just scooted my Terminators a little closer. What's his name? Vulcan got a little closer to these Canoptic Wraiths, and Adrax got closer to the Immortals. But that's pretty much it. Alright guys, so essentially I had almost no shooting. My Flamestorm Aggressor up here took out 2 Necron Warriors, the green ones with his flame, with his fire. And then the Tacticals at the top tried to take out some Immortals down here, but they did not do it. So that was my shooting phase. Pretty uneventful. Alright guys, so Vulcan charged the Canoptic Wraiths, and because he was an inch away, he made it in. The Thunder, the Assault Terminators charged the Chronomancer and the Necron Warriors. They also got in, and then Adrax charged the Immortals, and he got in. So everyone who charged got in. Alright you guys, so fight phase. I'll start over here. So Vulcan swung and he killed 2 out of the 3 Canoptics, and he left 1 with a single wound.
2 wounds left, actually. Yeah.
Okay, so then the Eradicators punched him as well and did 1 wound.
And so he survived with 1 wound left.
With 1 wound. Mm-hmm. Now, they did 2 wounds, but you saved 1.
Yeah.
Which was unfortunate. The attack bike swung. He did nothing. Adrax Agatone, he killed the 2 Immortals, just barely though, because I don't know why. But with all his attacks, he was only 2 went through to damage. The Terminators did 5 wounds to the Chronomancer, but he saved all of them with his invuln. And they did a bunch of damage to the Necron Warriors, but same thing, he saved a bunch, and then I think 2 came back from...
Yeah, because they had a 5-up invulnerable save from the Chronomancer, so they actually endured a lot, and I got 2 back from reanimation protocols. And then when it came to the Adrax Agatone, after killing the Immortals, piled into the Scarabs. And so what I did was I used the self-destruct stratagem with the Scarab, where I sacrifice 1, and on a 2 through 5, they will do D3 mortal wounds. On a 6, it's 3. And I managed to successfully do 2 mortal wounds to him using that, and the Scarab had to die. Then the Scarab swung. They did 3 wounds to him, and he failed 2. So they've done 4 wounds to Adrax Agatone, who is still alive pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, and then my Canoptic Wraith swung on the Eradicators, did 1 wound.
Yeah.
And yeah, like pretty much nothing else happened.
Alright guys, so for primaries I had 2 objectives, so I got 8 for that. Stranglehold, I actually don't have that this turn. No, I
Nope.
don't. I did get another Necrons data, and the scouring is being scoured. So, not a great turn. Not terrible per se, but not good.
Alright, after looking at the points, we realized that, well, my opponent decided to call it there because there's no way he could really come back from that. And so, Necron victory. So, for my MVPs, I actually have a runner-up. I have the Goss Warrior Reapers, the ones who went in the back and just completely obliterated an entire squad of Invader ATVs who held off the Terminators who survived for so long. They would distract the Terminators for 2 turns. I thought those guys would sit in the middle. So this is a runner-up. The only reason I am not giving them the number 1 spot is because the Chronomancer, the guy who made the entire Deep Strike possible, and who also survived multiple Melt-A-Shots and 6 Thunderhammer attacks with his abilities and his items. So,
And some lucky equal.
yeah. And so basically, he was destroyed by a monolith in my last game, but in this game, he wasn't destroyed by a monolith because I didn't bring a monolith to get him killed. And he really was the ultimate MVP in the game, sideswiping my opponent entirely, forcing him to send his Terminators back. Well, he didn't have to send them back, but he chose to focus them back, which took them out of the middle, which made the middle easy and empty. And so he pretty much won the game for me for his abilities. I mean, everyone else did a lot of good, but he had the greatest contribution. And then for my LVP, these Necron Warriors, they, despite having twice the range as the other ones, 24 inches with the regular guns, they did almost nothing. They barely shot. They did a couple wounds to some Intercessors, 1 wound to a Dreadnought, 1 wound to Eradicators, and then they ran in the middle, and with 3 rounds of combat, were not able to deal a single wound against that 1 attack bike in the middle. They only were able to take the objective because of their OBSEC. But that absolute trash performance was terrible. They should have completely killed that attack bike in the first round. They should have done way more wounds to the Eradicators and everything else. They were a massive disappointment, so they are my LVP.
Yeah, so for me, MVPs, I mean, most of my units did okay. I think the Eradicators pulled their weight again. Just basically whatever they shot at, they just melted it, like, hands down. So Eradicators, I would say MVP. I don't there's really any debate on that one. Maybe Vulcan, who gave them the rerolls, but other than that, he didn't really do anything.
Yeah, they wiped out a whole Locust Heavy Destroyer unit.
Yeah, and they didn't even get through all their shots either. I would say LVP would be the Invaders. Last game they were actually really strong and they did quite a bit of damage. This game though they got dropped real quick.
I aimed for them.
So, yeah, so they didn't really get a chance to do anything. So I would say that's why they're LVP. Everything else kind of had a chance to gain points and do whatever, but they did not. So they're the worst.
And overall, as far as the game, anything I could have done differently, anything else, I mean, I apart from, yeah, you go first.
I don't know how I feel about Adrax. I think I would swap, if I were to keep like a Smash Captain, I would swap him out for a regular Terminator Captain. They have a Relic Thunderhammer that does some pretty crazy damage. But I also think I probably wouldn't have brought these Terminators back around on these Necron Warriors, because just the amount of swings that they were able to pull off was really good, but the invuln saves negated a lot of that damage. So I think Thunderhammer Terminators need to focus on higher models. So I probably should have turned the aggressors on them with just their mass amounts of flamers. I don't really know what to do down here. Maybe if I had something a little faster. I also probably should deep strike the Terminators again. Yeah, I don't know. If I had probably a better setup, and maybe the Invader ATVs were down here on the bottom, maybe that could have been something.
Well, they were on the bottom. I just wiped them out.
Oh, sorry, the bottom, my bottom. So your top.
So up
Yeah.
here, invader ATVs.
Yeah, because then they would have been able to fly up real quick. Because they could have hid back here, and then with their 14-inch movement, they probably would have ended up here. So they would have been able to jump in and melt a whole bunch of stuff before at least they, died or whatever. Yeah. So I would say that's probably the real big corrections. The attack bike, I don't really ever have a plan for it. It's just kind of a really fast mover. So, of course, forgetting to do something like Nachman data was a big mistake, I think, on my part. That second turn. Yeah. But, yeah.
Well,
I don't think I would have been around another turn anyway.
Well, as for me, I'm really impressed with the destroyers. They were very good. The big super shot is a little risky, though. Maybe not have like 3 units that have the big destroyer, because like I can still miss, and I can use the ability to re-roll them. I mean, they're core now, so might be possible to buff them up, but like, so I'd have to use a CP to re-roll if I failed one, and then I can use that strat to auto wound, so that'd be good. But there are limits to that. It is a bit risky, and it's a bit of points, but these destroyers, very good. They're more expensive than the big destroyer guy or the Canoptic Doomstalker. I understand why people take that, because it has a 4-up invulnerable save. These guys do not have that, as that one squad was just utterly obliterated by the Eradicators can show. This Canoptic thing, so it really depends. It's because the Eradicators, I need this guy to give off bonuses and his abilities, but he had to hide the entire time because he would just get immediately one turn obliterated. So if he was a regular Lord, I would have been able to move him more forward, but so it's a bit difficult to say because he had Resurrection Orb and stuff like that. I expected more damage to these warriors to bring back and stuff. I played my Technomancer kind of bad. He needed to get within range of these locusts so he could bring one back from the dead. So he wasn't used as efficiently. So I didn't play efficiently. I mean, I'm relatively new. This is my second game with Necrons. So I did not play efficiently at all. My units didn't do as good as... I mostly played them not as good as I could at positioning and stuff. And of course, these Necron warriors, Gauss Reapers all the way, take the 12-inch ones. The 24-inch guns barely did anything. Strength 5, AP -2 is a big deal. It really, really matters. And
They do have really short range, though.
Short range, but like when everyone was moving forward, it wasn't that big of a deal. Well, also like, so even in the short range, I still had against these Eradicators and the Dreadnought here, I still had like six guys able to shoot the Dreadnought. That would have been 12 shots. Strength 5, AP -2 would have done a lot better. And against the Eradicators as well, Strength 5, AP -2 would have done better. So the Canoptic Wraiths, their weapon skill, ballistic skill really hurts them, but their movement and their ability to charge even after falling back makes them very useful for tying up enemy units. And their 12-inch move really, really helped, and being able to go through enemy units and stuff as long as they don't land on top of them. So they're strategically useful, but they kind of fail.
You might want to take like minimum squads and use them to just maybe try and like run around on objectives and stuff.
Here's the thing: Scarabs are fast attacks, and I need these guys to be on my objectives. And Canoptic Wraith is a fast attack, so you can see my problem.
Oh yeah.
So 2 Canoptic Wraiths, and I have space for 1 more. I mean, I didn't bring any elites. These locusts are heavy, so it's just mostly experience and stuff. So we'll see what the next games hold. It'll be pretty interesting. So yeah, so it was a fun, quick, relatively short game in comparison to some of the ones we have. And the new missions, I don't know what to think about them. This new mission,
I think they are interesting, and I think having a mission secondary that you don't have to choose between your other secondaries, I think that's why so many of them were never taken. Like, we literally just straight up ignored them. Like, didn't even think twice about them. But now that it's always in there, so it's like a full secondary essentially. I think it is interesting because now it adds another element where you're like, okay, well, I need to grab these 3 points. And so I think it does force some different tactics and trying to figure out, okay, I need some like scrap units that can just run around and do these things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Nachman data. I think one of the interesting things about Octarius data, the last one of its type, is you didn't have to qualify it, so you could just have units run up and do whatever. But with Nachman data, you have to roll on it based on the squad size. And so that's also a crafty move on their part. I say crafty, but it's kind of annoying.
Mm-hmm.
Because now you got to have, to make sure it works, at least a squad of 6. Unless you're just a terrible roller, in which case you could send like a squad of 2 or 3 of but anyway.
Yeah, so the missions make the game more interesting. I'm really sensing a meta shift towards lots to have very few filled out units.
Yeah, and more just like numbers.
Well, the game just crashed.
Oh, did it? Mine's still in.
Yeah, just give it like 12 seconds. Well, I guess that's telling us to go. So overall, game was interesting. The new meta seems to be shifting towards many individual squads rarely maxed out. That's what it seems like.
Oh, I just got booted.
Yeah. All right then. So GG. We'll see you again next time. Bye.